Okay, in this video we're going to look at algebra basics, and this stuff is revision. What we're doing is looking at some basic words you will hear when we are starting to talk about our algebraic terms, or alphabet maths, whatever you want to call it. Okay, so what we've got here is an algebraic expression. And what that means is we've got a few different terms, and we'll get to those words in a minute. And we can see immediately we've got some different letters in there that aren't normal numbers. Now, an expression is what we see when we do not have an equal sign. As soon as we add in an equal sign, what we actually get is this whole thing is now an equation. Okay, having a look at that first part of that word equation, it looks very similar to the word equals, and that is because now the equals appears, and it's kind of like a finished off statement. So expression or equation, you'll see that it might say solve this algebraic expression, or rearrange this algebraic equation, or things like that. Okay, our next part here is we're going to look at this big 3x here. Now altogether this whole thing is known as a term. Right? One term is one big set here. So that means y is also a term, 4 is also a term, and 17 is also a term. Within this term there's a few different things. Number one, we've got the number, and the number is the coefficient, right? Efficient. And the x is our variable. Now a variable, I can't really see that, so I might write it over it again. The variable is our unknown number, and it can quite literally be anything. What it can't be though is this number, this variable over here. This one is also a variable, but it is actually a different variable, and we represent it with a different letter. So this whole term is made up of a coefficient and a variable, and the coefficient is a number that multiplies the variable. Okay, now in algebra, if we see a number and a letter stuck together, we have to imagine there is a very, very tiny multiplying sign in there. Right, so we've got a term here. Within the term there's a coefficient and a variable. We have another variable here, and this particular thing here is just looks like a boring old number, and my pen's run out. That's fantastic. And this is known as a constant, and it is a constant number because it never changes. All right, it is a known number, as opposed to, say, a variable, which is an unknown number, and it never changes. If it's there, we can move it around, we can simplify it with other numbers, but we can't do much else with it because it's very important that it stays there. So there are basic terms that we use for algebra: an expression and an equation. We've got the term, and in this equation we have 1, 2, 3, 4 terms. Within this term we have a coefficient, which is our number that multiplies by our variable. We have two variables, an x and a y, and we also have a constant. We also have this answer over here. Okay, some very basic terms to remember.